As we move closer to the true off-season, it's time we start taking a look at some of the players and prospects' full seasons for the Avs. We're going to kick things off with Ty Lewis. Lewis's path to signing with the Avalanche was a little bit different than most. In 2016, he went undrafted after his first major junior season. He went back to Brandon and put up point-per-game numbers that year. He then came back to the 2017 draft as a 19-year-old eligible. He ended up not getting drafted again, even though he was slated to go in the 5th round. Lewis was now essentially an unrestricted free agent, and teams were free to talk to him and potentially sign him. A few days after the draft, Lewis showed up at the Avs rookie development camp. Lewis really did impress there. Of the handful of guys the Avs brought in that were unsigned players, Lewis stood out by far the most. After rookie camp ended, not a whole lot was heard about Lewis until we got up to Avs training camp for real. He showed up there as well, and he did quite well yet again, not only getting into the burgundy and white game, but as an unsigned player even getting into one preseason game as well. I'm not going to say he looked amazing in training camp or anything. He really didn't even play that much in his one preseason game, but he did look good enough to deserve a contract. It took a bit to make it official. Lewis was cut from training camp and sent back to his junior team in Brandon, where he would score 6 points in his first 2 games back, and then we would hear that the Avs had officially signed him to an ELC. After signing the ELC, it didn't really take long for Avs fans to learn they really had something with Lewis, as he would go on an absolute tear, putting up a massive point streak to start the season with Brandon. Lewis was an absolute triple threat in the offensive zone for Brandon. With the puck, he could pass it, shoot it, or skate it at any time. No defense in the league was going to be able to stop him. He does play as a bit of a power forward on the wing for the team, but he also has enough skill to create plays and make the players around him better. At 5'11", build between 175 and 185 pounds at this point, Lewis isn't small, but he's not exactly big either. I do have a few reservations on if he can continue to play that true power forward style at that size. With that said, the skill he does have should likely be enough for him to have other options in his play styles moving into the professional game. Lewis's work ethic is what sets him apart from a lot of players. The kid just does not quit. He hounds the puck and makes sure to keep control of it and create plays for his team. Beyond that, his offensive instincts away from the puck are solid. He has a knack for finding open space, getting the puck where he needs it, and finishing a play. Lewis did play on the second PK unit for Brandon, and while he was perfectly serviceable, it's definitely not the type of game that he prefers to play, and I do imagine he will be more offensively minded in the professional game. When Brandon gained control of the puck, it was a regular sight to see Lewis already flying the zone, and it made sense for him too on that team. He was by far the team's best offensive weapon, and he made use of flying the zone more often than not. Brandon was shaping up to be one of the better teams in the WHL this year, but at the deadline they opted to sell because of how strong teams like Moose Jaw, Swift Current, Regina, and Lethbridge looked. Lewis was one of the few players left on Brandon after the sell-off, and he basically single-handedly carried that offense through the second half of the season and all the way to the second round of the playoffs. Overall, it's safe to say Lewis exceeded expectations of everyone this season. On the year, Lewis scored 44 goals and had 56 assists for 100 points in 70 regular season games, and on top of that, he also had 13 points in 11 playoff games. Based on his stats and play, I'm going to give Ty Lewis a very, very solid A grade. I might be being a little bit nitpicky here, but there's a couple reasons why I didn't give Lewis an A+. First, as a 19-year-old in the WHL, Lewis was expected to have a strong season. And granted, while he did exceed those expectations, it wasn't a totally blow the whole league out of the water thing, as there were a number of players who reached 100 points this year. Secondly, and this one really isn't any fault of his own, because he made the second round of the playoffs, we didn't get to see him play pro hockey at all this year in the AHL. So all we have to go on with him against pro players is some preseason hockey and just one real preseason game with a low minute total. So it's hard to really gauge what he's going to be at professional hockey levels. With that said, I do think he definitely has the skill set to succeed at the AHL level, and we'll see if he can push his game up to NHL caliber as well. That is the end of this player's season review. you. Thank you for watching. I have plans to do as many players as possible for this off season, and I'm going to do at least all of the Avalanche players that are returning for next year. If you want to check out some of Ty Lewis's season highlights, you can check it out in this video up here. I also did a shift by shift of him, which you can see right over here. I'm Rudo3, and I need to find me some burgundy tinted glasses, eh?